so many people who will be running in that marathon share our concerns about a multitude of issues. And in our view, it would be wrong to do anything to try and disrupt.
Around 30,000 people are expected in central London from Friday for the biggest climate change protest in years. Also on Sunday, thousands of runners and their supporters will head to the central London for the London Marathon. Could there be trouble? Richard Eccleston is the protest liaison and Southwest coordinator at Extinction Rebellion. He's also a former army and police officer, so he brings a wealth of different perspectives here. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning to you. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Well, I'm really interested in your perspective on this because we talk a little bit about protesting, and there seems to be this notion, and Extinction Rebellion used to embody this notion, that to really be effective, you've got to wind people up, you've got to make news, you've got to throw orange powder on a snooker table, you've got to run across the Grand National, you've got to do stuff that causes people bother. Is it true that Extinction Rebellion started off that way and has had a change of heart in terms of how it wants to protest?
Well, I think that's a great question. And of course, Extinction Rebellion has always been about mobilizing lots of people to make their voices heard to this failing government about their inadequate response to the climate and ecological emergencies. So we've always been about numbers. But as you rightly say, sometimes you have to do things to get in the news, as you would acknowledge, I'm sure. If it's not new, it's not news. So those kind of actions, I think, have been an important part of raising awareness, getting the conversation into the headlines so that people can really understand the situation that we're in. It highlights the fact that the science is not being listened to by this government. They've just produced a net zero strategy that flies in the face of the information that has just come out from the IPCC. It flies in the face of their own climate change committee's recommendations. They are failing us, and if they continue in this vein, I'm afraid we are headed towards civilizational collapse, and that is not a prospect that we are prepared to sit around and wait to happen. That's why we need to mobilize. That's why we have, if you like, changed the focus for the events coming up this weekend to encourage as many people as possible from a wide ecology of movements. You will know from the press release yesterday that there are nearly 200 supporting organizations for this protest in London. And I think that, that is what the government needs to know, is that there are lots and lots and lots of people who are not satisfied with their approach.
And we cover the issue of climate change all the time on this programme, whether there are protests or not. So are you committing, though, Richard, to say we're going to protest in London, London Marathon's going on, we are not going to do anything that stops people running? We have made a decision, we've had a sort of committee decision, we're not going to do anything that stops the running of that race in a way that would affect the people who've worked very hard to run in it.
Absolutely. Look, let's be absolutely clear here. We have no intentions of disrupting the London Marathon. So many people who will be running in that marathon share our concerns about a multitude of issues. And in our view, it would be wrong to do anything to try and disrupt.
So why don't your colleagues in other, not in Extinction Rebellion, in other protest groups, not see that, the sense of that? Because I think people listening to this will admire you saying that. I see the Just Stop Oil guy, and I don't think, let's have a debate about fossil fuels and our desire to get carbon neutral. I just think moron, and I think kind of selfish moron, who is not doing anything that advances a cause that is very clearly able to be articulated by eloquent people who believe in it. That seems to me is how you change people's minds. It's not by annoying groups of people who may well be put off by you. That seems like a straightforward psychological proposition. What do you say to other organisations who are not taking your slight shift in approach?
Well, look, it's not for me to speak for other organizations. Look, if you want to talk to Just Stop Oil about the way they choose to deliver their message, then get them on the show. Yeah. That's what I would suggest. But what we're saying is that this protest in London, starting on Friday, is about people coming together, having the chance to deliberate. And really get the messages across to the government that we want them to receive. And those are that we really must end new fossil fuel funding, new fossil fuel licensing. This is an absurd situation we're in, whereby you have the government granting these licenses, even thinking about opening a new coal mine, at a time when we have to have a radical decarbonisation strategy, which is perfectly doable. We have all the technology. What we lack is the leadership, I'm afraid, in the government to deliver what we need to do. It's not a question of what we want to do. It's a question of what we need to do. And how are we going to get the government to change? Look, we have a solution for them. We've said this right from the get-go. Look, the way to get this through the political kind of maelstrom is to use the concept of the citizens' assembly. We're asking for emergency citizens' assemblies at this time. That's where you get a group of randomly selected people, a bit like coming onto a jury, whereby they are informed.
I understand. I understand. We've talked about it before. I think we understand what that is, Richard, and you've articulated your case really clearly. We're ever so grateful for you joining. Good luck for the weekend, and I hope there are no disruptions, because I think people across the country would like to see protest without disruption, perhaps, or many would at least. Richard Eccleston there, the protest liaison and Southwest coordinator at Extinction Rebellion.